guys, welcome back to episode 18 of Honey in the Rock. I'm Sophie, and today I have a special guest. This is Kara. It's my mom's best friend, so she's like my Aunt Kara, but we're not actually related. But if you need a best friend duo, just look to them. It's kind of best. they match very well. Stacy's the crazy one, you're the calm one.
She kind of brings me out.
It's a good balance.
Yeah, it's a good balance.
But we're going to be talking about today how there can be beauty in ashes in the hard times through whatever challenge and trauma you're going through. And so we're just going to go straight into it. What is your story?
Okay, well, I'm going to go back just as a youth.
Yes.
I accepted Christ. And then probably in college is when I really started growing spiritually and studying the Bible.
Yep.
And so then for years, I have studied Bible and had my morning quiet time.
Yep.
And then in September of 2020, our world was shattered, basically.
Yeah.
And that was when our 16-year-old son was in a car accident that ended up being fatal. So we were in the hospital and we expected him to be healed, honestly.
Yes, me too.
And he was not healed this side of heaven. And at the time, honestly, we felt abandoned.
Yeah.
I mean, it was tough.
Right, yeah. That's and that's like a lot of the reason I started the podcast was because through Grant's accident I found a lot of like, wait, what is Jesus? You got to go deeper in it. If you're going to be rooted in something, be rooted in it. And that's really a lot of like, I was really encouraged to step out in my faith through that because we're not promised tomorrow. And so
and speaking on that foundation is, and this we'll probably talk more about this later, but that's kind of what got me through those years of Bible study in the morning and talking to Jesus in the morning. So when I needed to call out to Jesus because it was a hard time, I had that foundation.
Yes. And when you were able to see the good times with Jesus before, if you just saw him during the bad times, you'd feel like you're abandoned forever.
Right. Right.
And so that really is important to have that foundation already. So when the hard times come, you're not knocked over as hard. So my first question is, how has God been faithful during this season and that season of life?
Okay. And we did feel abandoned for a short time.
Yeah.
But then we also felt him carrying us because you really don't know the next step. You don't know what to do. And there were days when I really felt like I just wanted to run. And you know me, I don't run. I hate to run. But like, I just needed to run, and you can't run from grief. Yeah. And so it was like Jesus' arms were open and I just could run to his arms.
Right.
And that's where I found the comfort.
Right.
Because I just felt that peace really in him.
Right. Yeah. And once again, if you're not already rooted in Jesus, when those times come, it's going to be harder to want to run to him in that.
Right. It would be easy to run the other way.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And that really it was like such a weird time because it felt like time was moving so slow, but then also flew by at the same time. You know,
like you were just kind of sleepwalking through it.
Yes.
Yeah, in a fog.
It was a fog, but even during those times, you can still like look back and see what God has done through that, and like, you know, the different people who came to Jesus through it, and the organs that saved other people, and like, so now like looking back, it still like sucks, but there are little things that you can see how God was faithful, even though I felt like in the moment it was hard to see the good of it.
Right.
So my next question is, what is something beautiful that came out of Grant's passing?
Well, and you mentioned the organs.
Yes.
We were able to donate his organs, which was a comfort to us as well as, I know it saved lives, but it was a comfort to us that we were able to do that.
Right.
And then I would say the other thing was how the community just poured out their love to us. It was amazing. It was overwhelming, absolutely overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it continues because every year on his birthday, we try to do something. Yeah. And so we've had toy drives where we've had hundreds of balls donated in his name. And then this year with the gift cards for Miracle Hill, it was over $5,000.
That's crazy.
So that's still beautiful to us.
Yes. But both of those things were very healing to be the ones like also being able to donate the gift cards. And like at school, people gave me gift cards to give, and so it made me feel good that I was still connected. But like we're not even in your family, and we had food for us for like 3 weeks. People just kept bringing food, and that really does show like how so my mom could be at your house.
Right.
People came and provided at our house too, and so that was like really cool to see how like God was able to move in that as well. Like
it made me want to do better in that kind of thing. Where and I've said this to people before, go ahead, send the card, text, make the phone call.
Yeah.
We never had a single person that stopped by, that sent us something, that brought a meal that was not wanted. Every single time it made us feel good. And so do it. Just pour into people. That's what it means a lot.
Yes. Carries through. And every time we got to your house, there's good desserts. So
grab the cookie as you walk through.
And so there was this verse I found. It was Psalms 34:18, and it says, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." And that just like it really does show like the Lord carries through the hard times, the worst thing that could happen here on earth. He still can carry through and still be good in that. And so my next question is, during the hardest days, how did you see Jesus?
And I think it's back to where, with the way people poured into us, you know, just the little things that we didn't even know were happening sometimes. But also, I think, like we would hear songs and I would just know it was Jesus speaking right to us.
Yes. Yeah.
Or a verse or a sermon, or I feel like almost there were times when he just whispered into my ear.
Yes.
One time in particular, we were sitting in church, and I felt like I was thinking, God, I would have given you so much glory if you had allowed him to just walk out of the hospital. I would have given you all the glory. I felt like that, all the glory. And it was almost like he whispered in my ear, okay, but that's what anybody would do. Right. So now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
It's like he continued to talk to me.
Yeah. That's really cool. It was something about the songs. There was like, I heard a lot of songs at that time, and there was a lot of like, it was like Weary Traveler. Now I can't remember any of the names. So there was like probably 5. And I wrote them all down, and I was like, I've never heard songs like that before. Maybe I just wasn't listening for them, but it really seemed like the day we were coming home from the hospital, we were starting to start hearing them, and then I just heard them for months and months after. And it was like, the Lord, like, even through music, it was like, I was like, what? Like,
it's like it really just speaks right to you.
Right. It was very comforting. And so what was an encouraging verse that you held on to in those times?
Well, one that I've held on to those times and I continue to hold on to, and it was really like my verse of the year last year, I felt like, is Romans 15:13, and it's, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit."
That's good.
And it's just, to me, is that hope that we know we'll see Grant again.
Right.
That hope. And peace, I have truly experienced that peace that passes understanding. You always hear about the peace that passes understanding, but I have experienced it. And I can't explain it. I don't understand. I still don't understand it. But there's a peace that comes from that.
Right.
And then that verse also speaks about joy.
Yeah.
And, joy is not just from circumstances.
Yeah.
Because our circumstances have not been joyful.
No.
That part has not been joyful. But I know that this isn't our home. I think that's what that verse speaks to too. Yes. I have a hope in Jesus, and that I will see Grant again. Do you remember from Bible school when y'all did y'all would always play that song? They would play as loud as they could. God's big house.
Yep. Lots of rooms.
Yes, lots and lots of rooms, and that's what I like to think about.
Right.
And how much Grant lived that song.
Yes.
Anyway,
we would sing it so loud.
Yes, as loud as he could. And that I like to think of him being up there saying, "Look at all these rooms, guys! Come on, come on up!"
And the football line.
Yes,
lots of food.
Lots of food, and a big yard where they can play football.
Yep.
And I still like to think too that there's basketball courts.
Probably, it's probably like that field right outside this room that we would always play in. Yep.
And they're golden basketball courts.
Oh yes, yeah. About going back to the joy, A lot about me and my friend Macy, we've been talking a lot about the difference between joy and happiness, and it keeps coming up. The past probably month, it has come up in almost all of my conversations, and it's like, we might not be joyful here. Like, the joy, wait, hold on, that was confusing.
Might not be.
Our circumstances aren't always joyful, but when you're looking for joy, you can find that in God alone. God can bring you joy, but things in this world can make us happy. Like, I can be happy when I eat my ice cream, but, you know, I can be happy in this and that, but, like, true joy is found in Jesus.
Right.
And so it's like, my circumstances might not be joyful. They can be hard, but I can find joy in God still through those hard things.
Right.
But I might not be happy. He never promised us happiness.
Right, right.
You know, peace, love, joy.
And that's, we found that, like, joy and grief can coexist.
Right.
You know,
which is so confusing.
Right. I think it is confusing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then I also liked about we went to this hard funeral a few weeks ago, and it was of this mom, and she had these 4 little boys, and just seeing these 4 little boys and their dad walk down the aisle was so heartbreaking. But this funeral was so joyful and so hope-filled. It was like gut-wrenching. It made your stomach hurt because you saw those 4 little boys, but it was so hopeful because her testimony of Jesus, she loved the Lord. And we were just saying, like, what a blessing it is for those boys to be able to see their mom again, and what a blessing it is for us to see Grant again, and like all these things that, you know, grief can still be so hopeful when they know the Lord and when we know the Lord, and like how much harder would it be to lose somebody who didn't know the Lord, because you have no hope of seeing them again.
You don't have
the
that
hope of seeing Grant again.
Jeff likes to say sometimes that Grant just ran ahead of us.
Yeah, he's preparing it. And so one final verse that I'm going to read is Matthew 5:4. And it says, "Blessed are those who mourn, and they shall be comforted." And it really was like, Jesus really does comfort in those times, in ways that, like, you might not even know in the moment until you look back at it and be like, oh, whoa, he was really comforting. But in the little things of, like, sunsets and, you know, food being bought on cards and, like, all the things, and people still, like, remembering it and sharing. Like, I love to tell Grant's story. People, like, are afraid to ask because they think I'm not going to bust out in tears every time. And it's
and if you
fun
do,
to
it's
share.
okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But it really is fun to share his story. And so to, like, have that on is also, like, a comfort thing to us. Even my mom, she has a plant. This actually could be a problem. But she calls it her Granty plant, and she talks to it a lot. So
I've seen that.
maybe that could help, or that could be concerning. I don't know.
But your mom is really good about bringing Grant up in conversation.
Yeah,
and
she
asking,
is.
Oh, what did Grant like about this? Or remember what Grant went to do?
Yes, she is very good at that. And
she is very good at that.
at the beginning, it was hard. I'm like, Mom, stop. Like, every time we would do something, like, oh, okay. And like, Mom, it's like, it felt heartbreaking every time, but now it's like such a joy to bring it up more and more. But that's all we have. But it's just like, look for the beauty in death, in the hard things you're going through. And you can still say it sucks and it's hard. That was the best. I was getting all these sweet texts, which I really did appreciate, but one person just texted me, I'm sorry, this sucks. And I was like, yeah, it does. And so to know that's okay, this is hard, but also to remember the hope that we have, and look for the good things and look for the pretty things in the grief. But thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
If you're watching, you see we're wearing matching sweaters. TJ Maxx.
Put a little plug in there.
TJ Maxx. But that's all. And I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.